Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal, and as of this week, The War Within Season 1 has officially launched, opening up a brand new raid of the Nuremberg Palace on normal and heroic difficulty, with a mythic difficulty available next week. The PvP season is in full swing, and Mythic Plus dungeons not quite here. Those are arriving next week, but Mythic Zero dungeons are currently available with upgraded gear and items. But another fantastic method of gearing a character right now is through delves, as tier 8 delves are finally open. The highest tier of delves that award some fantastic gear, from champion gear, but also maps that can award you up to hero track gear, equivalent to heroic raid gear quality, but also an opportunity for players to fill out their great vault with tier 8 delves, making them incredibly lucrative. But as many players finally dive into delves, they're noticing that some of the higher tier delves, like tier 8 and above, are actually quite challenging, especially as a solo player. So for this video, I want to go over all the different things that you can do right now in order to make your delving experience in War Within just a little bit easier. As always, if you guys want to see more guides like these for the War Within, be sure to follow the channel and subscribe. Otherwise, let's dive into the list of how to make sure you never fail a bountiful delve ever again. So off the get-go, if you are struggling to solo delves or want to have a little bit of an easier experience, or rather a safer experience, running delves as a group is a bit of a safer route to go. It doesn't necessarily make them easier, because the enemies inside of these delves will scale with the group sizes. So the more allies you have with you, the harder enemies are going to hit and the more health they're going to have. Just because you are filling the group with a bunch of players doesn't mean they're necessarily going to be a pushover, but having a bigger group can make certain aspects a little bit easier to manage. What a lot of players are doing right now is they're using the LFG feature in the delve specifically to find the delves they're looking for. So for example, you're trying to do the Underkeep delve, you'll see a bunch of players are listed for different difficulties of delves. If you are running delves as a group, the most common group sizes are going to be a 5-man party with a tank and a healer and 3 DPS, just like you're running some normal heroic or mythic dungeons. Or you can do a smaller group size where you don't have nearly as big a scaling, but a lot more of an efficient pacing. So normally you would have a tank, usually one that can do self-healing, so think of like Blood Death Knights or Guardian Druids. The warriors can work, I've seen groups with warriors, and 2 DPS. This allows the enemy scaling to not be nearly as high as a 5-man group, so you can get through the actual delves a little bit more efficiently. So no matter what kind of party sizes you're running through, make sure you bring at least 1, or better yet 2 classes that can res any of your falling party members. Not specifically battle res, though that can also be helpful, but like a proper res. You see, this is because inside of delves, when you start a delve, your group will have a limited number of lives, and in most tier 8 delves, that means you have 5 lives for the entire group. If you have to release and res at the start of a delve, you consume 1 of those lives, and when you're out of lives, you basically fail the bountiful delve. So if you get put in that kind of a situation, you want to make sure that you have a class that can actually res another player, because resing doesn't consume 1 of those lives. Neither does battle resing either, but having a normal res is just a little bit more economical. Now, if you are trying to solo delves, you still can do it. However, when you first walk up to a delve, they actually give you recommended item levels for all the different difficulties. Like a tier 1, you don't really need a high item level. Tier 4, nothing crazy, but as you start going up and up and up, it does actually increase the requirements for some of these difficulties, and it continues on into tier 10 and even tier 11. But for a comfortable experience within tier 8, they actually recommend for you to run at least 600 plus item level. And on a rogue, that's about 602 or so, maybe a little bit more since last night's raid. I can easily run through the delve. Don't have to worry about too many different mechanics or one-shots within a delve. But on my shaman, for example, that's a little bit of lower item level, you still can do tier 8. In some delves, you could do them very, very comfortably. But you will need to do a little bit extra more work in order to finish out those delves, as higher item level is going to make some of those encounters a little bit easier. So the best thing I can recommend as a solo player is to at least try your best as you can to meet the minimum item level requirements for that delves difficulty, or at least get as close as humanly possible. Do a couple of open world activities, get a good bunch of crests and valor stones, upgrade your gear, and try to reach that item level or get as close as you can before you try some of the higher tier difficulties. Now, another way that you can make delving a little bit easier is to talent your character accordingly. Making a best talent build as a DPS to focus on damage can be good, but if you're skipping out on survivability or some of the underused talents that you normally wouldn't pick up, that may actually make your delving experience a little bit easier, a little bit less threatening, can be the play. For example, as a shaman, I almost never really pick up elemental orbit unless I want to have double earth shield, but also right below that, refreshing waters can be huge when it comes to just catching up a little bit on healing. You have emergency self heals like Nature's Guardian. You could also crowd control better with Guardian's Cudgel when you're playing around Capacitor Totem. Being able to reset the capacitor totem for multiple suns in a row can also be very, very useful. Picking up someone like an AoE slow with your Frost Shock, for instance, can allow you to tackle on multiple enemies without letting them touch you in the first place. Picking up a little bit of more survivability with Earth and Elemental, Primordial Bond, things such as Stone Bulwark Totem. There's a lot of different ways that you could do little optimizations for your character in order to have a little bit better time surviving within delves. And even if you're not somebody who has the best experience with the class that you're playing, maybe it's your old, or maybe you haven't played the game for a while and are just going back for the War Within, down in the description, I have a link to some of the more popular recommended builds for every single one of the classes. And most websites nowadays that do guides have a section for the best raiding build, the best Mythic Plus build, but also the best delve build with a big focus on self-survivability for players that are looking to do solo delves in particular. And it even gives you some of the different recommendations when it comes to hero specs, because some of them have offensive power or defensive power. And for example, someone like a Farseer together with the Earthen Communion talent makes Earth Shield a little bit better as a self-survivability tool, while also offering you a little bit more of that instant cast, mobility heavy gameplay. Now that you get your character build, it's also a good idea to change the way that you run through delves. First thing to note is delves don't have a timer. You don't have to speed run through delves and do them as quickly as possible, which allows you to take delves at your own pace. You should also be able to play around your character's cooldowns, both offensives and defensives. If you're about to run into a powerful elite enemy that's difficult to take out, or maybe a group of enemies like 5 to 6 that you want to finish off as quickly as possible, those are probably your high priority targets where you want to use your cooldowns. But if you're going to be fighting a single foe or two foes that are not that threatening, that's probably a good idea to hold your cooldowns and use them during key specific situations. Also, just because there are enemies in a delve doesn't necessarily mean you have to fight them, especially if you have classes like Rogue, for example, who can stealth around. I can pick and choose which battles I want to fight, and I can go for a more safer route to make sure that I don't ever fail a bountiful delve. Lastly, try to utilize your entire class's toolkit. Like some classes, for example, like mages, are great at crowd control. You can polymorph one target while you take off enemies and not have to fight groups of enemies at a time. Instead, you could just fight one enemy at a time if you want to. Classes that have the ability to kite with slows or roots or any of those other effects should do so, because getting meleeed in a delve is going to be a lot more painful than getting meleeed by random mobs while out in the open world doing world quests, and you want to try to mitigate and take as little damage as possible if you don't have to. Classes like rogues and hunters in particular have abilities like Trickster Trade and Resurrect that allow you to redirect threat to another entity, such as Bran. So you can make Bran actually be a kind of like a makeshift tank inside of the delve if you want to do so. And just like we are setting our character up with more defensive talents, we also want to pick up some more defensive consumables, and at the very least pick up some Algari healing potions. You can splurge out for flasks and potions and all these other enchants and other things, but at the very least run some potions. They're not expensive. Even at rank 2, Algari healing potions provide 3.6 million instant health every 5 minutes, which can help you within delves to immediately take you out more from a dangerous situation into more of a happier situation, so at least you can escape some of the more dangerous encounters and just overall increases your chances of completing a delve in one piece. Also, if you don't have any good delves available for the day, sometimes it's a good idea just to save on your restored coffered keys. These keys is what you need in order to be able to open up some of your bountiful delves, though some delves have proven to be a little bit more challenging than others. And it's a good idea to not waste your keys on some of the more harder delves for you to solo. For example, in the Ring of Deeps, there is a delve called the Waterworks, which is probably the worst. It is F-tier delve in terms of solo ability, especially with the final boss doing as much damage as he does, especially with that damage being plenty unavoidable. And other delves that are not that great in order to do no matter the week is Earthcrawl Mines. Technically soloable, but a lot easier to do as a group. But if you are looking to do some of the delves that are some of the easier ones to do, I would say the spiral weave in particular is one of the easiest delves to solo easily an S tier delve. Something like a fungal folly is also falls in the S tier just because it's really easy to do. None of the attacks are unavoidable, and you can even use the environment to help clear some of the enemies with the spores as they explode. You can actually have all these mushrooms and lizards and all these creatures inside of the delves. All of them take damage from the spores as well. So if you can cluster them together, kill a spore, back away at the last moment, have the spore explode, and it can just take care of the enemies for you easily. Delves in Hollowfall, such as the Nightfall Sanctum, for example, is also pretty good. Not quite as easy as Spiral Weave or Fungal Folly, but definitely an easy A tier. And even certain delves such as the Dread Pit, not quite as easy as Nightfall Sanctum, but there's a lot of enemies that can be avoided, easy B tier. Another one that's also pretty good that you wouldn't think wouldn't be that great is the Underkeep. Again, not the easiest, but definitely very, very doable as a solo player. So if you do encounter a delve that's just really difficult, such as the Earthclaw Mine or the Waterworks, you could just save your keys and use them for when a good delve is up, as these delves rotate daily and the new delve becomes bountiful every single day. So you could just simply be more efficient with all of your restored coffer keys, maximizing the rewards while also minimizing the troubles you could have in certain delves. Now, the last bit of advice that I have is to simply level up a brand, which sounds easier than it looks, but if you play multiple alt characters, you can actually use all of those alts to level up your brand. Normally, brand can gain up to level 15 in any other delves, but past level 15, he requires experience from bountiful delves specifically in order to gain additional levels. And as Bran gains additional levels, he actually gains the Explorer's Medical Journal ranks, which increase his overall effectiveness of healing or damage and effectiveness of his abilities, constantly increasing with every single rank. Normally, if you run Bran through 4 delves on your main character, 4 bountiful delves specifically, you end up getting a bit of XP, and then you kind of just stuck with Bran's level as he is up until the next day when those delves refresh. However, if you play multiple alts like I do, or if you have a couple of alt characters at the very least, and if you're comfortable doing them as solo or even as a group, you can actually run those characters with their own bountiful delves, and all those characters continue to level up Bran. As part of the war mode system, all of your war mode characters share Bran levels, and every single one of the characters continues to gain additional XP for Bran, even for delves that you've already done. Bran also continues to retain all of his curios, so I end up getting a couple of purple quality curios left and right over in the combat section, as well as the utility curio, and those all transfer and can be utilized by my alts as well. So the more characters you have to run Bran through bountiful delves, whether as a group or as a solo player, the more experience Bran can get, which makes Bran more effective. So if you have multiple alts that can do delves that you're willing to do delves on, that you're looking to gear for the season, the more characters you have, the more experience Bran can get, the easier it's going to be to solo, especially some of the higher tier delves. But that's going to be all of the advice that I have for you today when it comes to you trying to have an easier time with the delves in the season 1 of the War Within. And as always, I want to thank all of you guys so much for watching, and I hope all of you enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it or found it informative, go ahead and give it a like. I would very, very much appreciate it. Join our rescue community if you have any questions regarding delves or need some help completing delves. Maybe there'll be somebody in the community, both EU and NA, that'll be down to join you, or maybe I'll be around. Maybe I can help out here and there on my main rug as I've gotten a little bit of gear. So join our rescue community. Let me know all your thoughts, what you think about delves in season 1 in the comment section down below. And as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.